When it comes to the depiction of Amy Rose in any given Sonic game, I always tend to find myself in the uncomfortable position of hoping for the best while bracing myself for the worst. After all, we never really know exactly which Amy Rose will be turning up until it's too late. Her depictions ranging from
You've got a soft spot inside your metal frame. If you want, we can be friends, okay?
to a more
That was scary!
Over the years, Amy has been portrayed from one end of the extreme to the other, and everything in between. And her fans now have massively varied and often uncompromising ideas about which of these characterizations is best. So when even talking about this character can be a proverbial minefield, what must it be like to write her? Honestly, it's a task I don't envy Ian Flynn for, and I was very curious to see how things would turn out with Frontiers. When every single choice you make will inevitably leave you in this position, and you can't please any one fan without angering another, how exactly do you walk that tightrope? Once again, through no lack of inconsistency, and like for pretty much every character in the series, with Pontac and Graf now gone, it was down to a new team of writers to square that circle. For me, they knocked the likes of Knuckles and Tails out of the park, but how did they fare with Amy? After waking up on Kronos Island, Amy is the first of Sonic's friends that he comes across, and upon being rescued from her cyber prison, rather than worry about her current ghost-like state, she instead shows concern for Sonic after he absorbs the energy from her cage. And after he puts her mind at rest about that, she then moves on to worrying that Tails is probably in the same situation she was. Okay, Frontiers Amy is super selfless and puts the safety of others before her own. So far so good. Whether it be putting off the main mission to help reunite a Coco couple in love, or a worried mother with her missing children, Amy just wants to help people. Like the time she put herself in harm's way to reunite a lost Flicky with its captured family, or when she helped Big find Froggy and Cream find Chocola, Frontiers seems to be refocusing Amy's character back onto what made people like her so much in the first place: her kindness and compassion. While helping the Coco, Sonic and Amy begin to gain an understanding of what these creatures want, and how helping them deal with their unfinished business seems to put them at peace. Sonic actually gains a lot of his patience for helping the Coco from Amy's good example, because at first he really isn't all that keen on the idea when it's time he could be spending saving his friends. Amy has a positive influence on him.
Are you telling me you would leave behind someone in need?
That's all it took. She knew exactly how to get through to him. And it's this subtle insight that makes Frontiers Amy feel like the closest to the real deal we've had for a while. At her best, Amy sought to influence a situation through diplomacy rather than force. Which is weird seeing how hot-headed and randomly violent her character has been depicted as at times, but my best version of Amy was the one who only brought down the hammer when it was needed. And it was the side of her that connected with people that actually made her so effective in a story. At first, it seemed like Sonic had no time at all for helping these weird little pebble people. He's legit like that poor kid whose parents know everyone in the town and constantly stop to talk to everyone they meet when he was promised a trip to McDonald's. But Amy reaches out to Sonic's compassionate side, playing on his desire to help people, and gets him on board with her plan. And from here, he actually goes on to encourage the others to help the Coco. While half trapped in cyberspace, Amy knows she can only be of limited help to Sonic. So she instead opts to help the Coco, the only people she can help in her current state. And Amy, whose primary focus is helping people, has always been the version of her character that clicked with me. So in that respect, it was great to see this dominating her motivations in Frontiers. Her character as a whole is a lot more mature and rational here, especially when you contrast it against some of the more extreme depictions of her past. She actually banters with Sonic and handles disagreements with discussion rather than getting super pissed and just throwing a tantrum. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given who's writing, it's a lot like what I've seen of her in IDW, and I've really enjoyed her portrayal in those comics from what I've seen so far. The dynamic between Sonic and Amy in Frontiers is leaps and bounds above a lot of what we've been used to in the last decade or so. In the past, when Amy dialed up her emotion to 11, Sonic was then forced to match that negativity with obnoxiousness and go into full escape mode, more often than not just coming off as an asshole. This wasn't a healthy dynamic for these characters, and if anything, only served to damage them both as it did nothing to make either one likable. Here, we don't see any of that. They're both always calm, and the respect they now have for each other is obvious to anyone. Sonic is actually comfortable in Amy's company, and that's a big deal. If you have even the slightest idea about how the relationship has been portrayed at times, you could be forgiven for thinking that these two would be incapable of interacting like this. I'm definitely on board with a more mutually respectful relationship for these two. It adds the potential for a lot more depth, and avoids their relationship becoming entirely toxic and one note. I like the scene where she stands up for Sonic when Sage is describing him as a danger to the world. It instantly put me in mind of that moment in 06 where she put Silver in his place for accusing Sonic of the very same thing. Yes, Amy still has an unquestionable bias here. Sonic is the person she loves more than anyone else after all, but you can tell her stance here comes from simply knowing Sonic for as long as she has. She knows who Sonic is and what he stands for, and that he would never intentionally cause harm to anyone. Amy is the type of friend that will stand by you and believe in you till the very end. And regardless of how rare that is in reality, it's definitely an extremely endearing character trait, and one that really suits her. If I'm honest, analyzing Amy in the same way that I did Knuckles and Tails was actually pretty difficult. Unlike those two, Amy doesn't really have a crisis of identity that Sonic has to help her through. When it comes to exactly what she wants in life, she gains that clarity for herself. Seeing those two ancients give up their lives for one final moment together, while bringing a lot of sadness, also seems to awaken in Amy the realization of what she must do. As she puts it, a love that transcends time. This is the kind of power that she believes in, and she now wants to travel the world and use that power to help people, even if it means being away from Sonic for a while. A sacrifice that, up until recently and outside of IDW, you couldn't really have imagined her making. When you consider how traumatic Knuckles and Tails describe Cyber Prison as being, the fact that Amy handles it so well and comes out the other side with not so much as an emotional scratch just proves how mentally strong she is. You never really get the impression that Amy questions her belief system a whole lot. Even at her worst, regardless of how she conducted herself, she always believed that what she was doing was the right thing. And that kind of psychological fortitude is likely why she handled Cyber Prison so well compared to the likes of Tails. Her sense of self and belief in her own convictions was enough to get her through it. Of all my talk of character growth and evolution in my videos on Tails and Knuckles, I don't really think it's solely about that for Amy, at least not in this game. I don't see any sign of Amy's character itself changing a whole lot in the near future. It's more so just that we now have finally settled on a version of her. All the best bits that we've caught glimpses of all throughout the series tie together nicely with how Ian Flynn is comfortable writing her in IDW, which in that context makes sense. She'll likely go off into the world to help people, all the while making great strides in building her skills and becoming more independent. A lot like how her story in Sonic Adventure finished out, but I don't really see the character of Amy Rose changing drastically. My bet is she will continue to serve as the glue that helps hold everyone together, even when it can sometimes be very subtle. And I think that her love for Sonic will always be a big part of her character. A bit of consistency with her characterization, make her playable in a style similar to the first adventure game, and I think we're onto a real winner for Amy. Is this a lot of speculation? Hell yes! But for now, speculation is the only luxury we're afforded because in the end, Amy, and indeed the rest of the supporting cast, are all now confident in what they want for themselves. And while everything is pretty loose on detail and non-committal right now, Amy is still in a much better place than she has been for a long time. And I'm a lot more confident about what the future holds for her. In terms of raw impact, it's not surprising for me to see that many people didn't really think Amy was up to much in Frontiers. Being introduced on the first island of the game, when there was a buttload of systems and gameplay that needed explaining, meant a lot of Amy's interactions with Sonic were tutorial based. And sometimes it really sounded to me like her VA recorded some of her lines with zero emotional context.
What was that girl?
Now, whether this was due to recording separately during the
Pandy?
miscommunications in directing, or just being pushed for time, I can't really say. But either way, it did slightly take away from some of the more serious moments for me. Tie that with the softly approach that was taken with her character with only very little changing, and you unfortunately end up with a lot of disappointment for some people. Her segments tended to be a lot more on the serious side, with very little opportunity for comic relief or bonding moments that weren't overshadowed by bleakness. So when you compare that to, say, Knuckles or Tails, maybe it's understandable that many feel Amy is a bit overshadowed in this game. But there are still a lot of positives here. If we are finally settling on a single version of Amy, even if it's not the version everyone wants, at least it will mean far more consistency for her as a character. For me, knowing it would be Ian Flynn writing, I had a fair idea in my mind of what to expect for her. Obviously within the scope of the overall story he was given. For those who don't enjoy Ian's take on these characters, that might be a hard pill to swallow. But from what I've seen of IDW so far, I'm at least willing to give it a chance and see where it goes. She's kind, caring, and just wants to help people in any way she can. She still likes Sonic, but isn't obsessing over him. And her unique understanding and ability to read the emotions of others shows us more of that insight she was known for in her early days. And that road trip she mentions with Styx and Cream opens up all sorts of possibilities for her. I don't think it's even remotely possible that they could have pleased everyone with Amy in this game, but I can at least come out of it a lot more confident about her character going forward. Anything that brings her closer to her adventure depictions is a good move in my book, even if this is a more mature version of her. But now, I'd like to get some thoughts from you guys. What did you think of Amy's character in Frontiers? If you didn't enjoy it, how would you have done it differently? Do you think she'll get her own spin-off game? And what genre would you want that spin-off game to be if she did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit that bell. If you don't hit that bell, YouTube pretends you aren't subscribed, so make sure to click it to see more from me. You can also join the channel Discord, follow my ramblings on Twitter, and if possible, you can go the extra mile and support me on Patreon or with a super thanks right here on YouTube. All of your support is much appreciated, and anything you can give is always a big help to me. Plus, you get to see your awesome self credited at the end of my videos. All those links are in the description, so be sure to check them out if you can. But for now, a big thank you for watching. And as always guys, take care.